1. This story took place about a year and a half ago when I was 17. It was autumn in Campsie, Sydney, Australia, that the following happened. Hence why I decided to name him the Campsie Creeper. I was having an otherwise alright day. It was the weekend, and I had earlier decided to catch the train one stop over from where I lived to go shopping in that district, Campsie. I'd already bought a couple dresses and a hat when I decided to sit down and have lunch. A chocolate milkshake and a takeaway burger. The day was nice, so I chose to sit in the communal sitting space, with trees and stores sporadically spaced. Being naturally a people watcher, I sat quietly on my own as I ate and just watched people go about their day. I soon, however, noticed a man seemed to be watching me too. He was rather tall, tanned, with dark hair and sharp facial features. If I had to guess, mid-30s. But I thought nothing of it at first. He was just another person. Without a second thought, I'd carelessly went on my day. I'd bought a couple more items of clothing, a large teddy bear, and cute key rings. I was having fun shopping, nothing more or less. The time, however, soon came, about 3 to 4 hours later, where I decided it was time to head home. I headed, satisfied with my purchases, back to the train station. I was halted as I stared up at the train map, not knowing which platform to be on for my ride home. I stood for a good few minutes before a man tapped my shoulder. I turned around attentively and slightly confused, and realized it was the same man from earlier, tall, tanned, dark hair, and the same sharp facial features. "Do you need some help?" he had innocently asked, to which I again rendered harmless. "Oh, yes, please." I was relieved to have the adult aid me in my way home, worried and anxious I might have gotten lost. It wouldn't be the first time I've missed or taken the wrong trains. The man then asked where I was going. I told him. He then showed me to the platform. Easy, simple, over. Or not. Whilst I sat awaiting my train, I noticed him again. He came, almost anxious, looking down the stairs, then over to me, respectively and cautiously. I stood to face him. "Come home with me," he almost directed. "What?" Obviously, I was confused. "I said come home with me, now." His tone got more fierce, and I realized he was serious. I was borderline shaking as he persisted. "Keep in mind, I am an extremely nervous and anxious person. I've been so all my life. I was too scared to even scream or make a fuss. Moreover, I'm worried that if someone tried something to this day, that I'd still be too in my roots to make a fuss. Sir, I don't think..." I quietly began to refuse before he cut me off. "You're coming with me," he sternly spoke again, and with that, the unfortunately prompt train did arrive. I wanted to refuse him again, but he grabbed my bag and shopping bags out of my hands and onto the train. I rushed on to get them back. People entered following suit, and the doors closed. The man then, still holding my belongings, walked to a seat and ushered me to sit. Considering he still had my belongings, I did. I sat blankly beside him for a moment, completely still and silent. I felt such genuine fear, the kind that makes you just want to cry. I knew my stop was the next one over, but he still had my bags. Should I ditch my belongings with him and just escape? My ID with my address, my bank cards. That seemed massively dangerous. However, so did sitting around and feeling scared. I had to do something. Taking a minute to compose myself, I later lifted my head and tried to think more rationally. We were still a while from home by the looks of things. I next looked over to the creeper beside me, quite warily, only to see him scrolling through his phone. He had pictures of me on it. Pictures of me looking at the train station map. Pictures of me looking through the dresses on a rack. Pictures of me waiting to cross the road. I shit you not. Pictures of me. I wanted to be sick. He had pictures upon pictures of me just living out my day. How careless I'd been not to notice is all I can think of in hindsight. Wanting to get off the train and get off now, I pretended my phone rang. I answered it loudly and stood. I talked on the phone to no one as loud as I could, and drew attention from idle passengers. Of course, they were more so just annoyed or curious. However, any attention was good attention. I didn't feel so isolated and trapped by the man trying to force me home with him. He shrank back in his chair slightly. I used my pretend phone call to act as if I was in a hurry to get home. I loudly exclaimed my worry for my hurt sister, to which none existed, and made sure people watched. I kept their eyes my way as I grabbed my bags off the man who snatched them. Clear witnesses, too, if he tried anything. I felt like an idiot for talking so obvious and loud, truthfully. It was almost embarrassing, be it not necessary. I went over towards the train door as soon as I'd gotten my items back, and played out the fake phone call. As soon as the doors opened, I felt relief. I put my phone in my pocket and began walking, but it was short-lasted. "Wait!" he called from behind me as he ran up and grabbed my shoulder. I was turned around and greeted by further demands. "Give me your phone number, then." I tried to nicely refuse. "Oh, I don't give my number out to strangers, sorry." He pulled up his phone and opened up the dial pad, then shoved it at me. "Give me your phone number. If it's not yours, you come home with me." His words continued to scare me. I doubted my safety all the more and figured I was safest to oblige. After doing so, I turned and walked home crying and in panic. I looked over my shoulder all the way home, only having small breakdowns whenever he'd text me. I still have the texts, and they read as followed. "I want to be with you. I go to your house to find you, okay? Can you give me your address?" And less coherently and finally, "What country do you have any difficulty? I can give you money to your food. Let us together tonight." When I got home, I informed my aunt and uncle, whom I lived with at the time, immediately, and we went to the police station to file a report. I'd handed over his number, the texts, and told them everything. I'm still not sure what has happened to him since then, nor where the pictures he took of me might be. I hope this is the worst he's done to anybody, and will ever do. 2. This happened last summer in a mid-sized town. I'd skipped my morning run that day, so I waited until the sun had started to dip behind the hills so it wouldn't be scorching hot. This is the first time I'd gone running in the evening, and I set out on a shorter route. Dusk falls at 10 p.m. this time of year, and it wasn't even 9 yet. Nothing seemed off, though the sort of people still outside were of a different lifestyle than those I usually saw in the morning. Instead of commuters with coffees in hand, children headed to summer camp, and elderly folk tending their gardens. There were mostly 20-somethings smoking on their porches, and teenagers coming and going. I head down a fairly quiet residential street I don't usually frequent to cut across to the last leg of my normal route. I always run with my dog. He's part Staffordshire Terrier, with a short coat, and most people assume he's a pit mix. Strangers tend to be a bit intimidated by his physique and his bark, so I felt pretty safe. As I turn onto the road, I hear a car behind me, but I think little of it. Then I realize it's been behind me for at least 4 blocks, so I make a quick glance over my shoulder. There's a beat-up burgundy sedan inching along. I'm used to drivers slowing down and catcalling me, but historically, if I ignore them, they just drive off. Just as I'm hoping that this person is looking for a house and will pull up into a driveway or along the curb, the car rolls parallel to me, brakes whining, and slows to match my running pace. I maintain my speed and look straight ahead, but my dog has started to pull on the leash. "Hey, what's up?" A male voice calls out from the car. I ignore it. "Hey, beautiful, what's going on?" He tries again for 30 seconds. No one in a vehicle has persisted before, so I tell him the first thing I can think of. "Look, I'm married," I say audibly. This oftentimes works when I'm normally being hit on, yet my words seem to have no effect. From my sideward glance, he looks about 30 with greasy, unkempt hair and a skinny frame. "What's going on?" he asks again, so I repeat myself. "Dude, I'm married." I project, this time looking up. My dog is growling softly and his hackles are up, but this guy doesn't seem to notice. "Hey, haven't I seen you? Aren't you the girl who likes to hang out at the park and smoke?" At this I'm irritated and looking around to see if anyone else is nearby. "No, you have the wrong person," I say calmly as my pace slows. "You are just so beautiful," he says, leering. "Look," I stop and stare at him. "I'm married, and I'm not interested." I hold up my hand to display my ring. Could I have been any more clear? My dog is now growling at the noise level I'm talking, but this creep isn't fazed. Trying to be as discreet as possible, I strain to catch a glimpse of his plates. But he stays parallel, so neither ends of the rusty car are visible. "Oh, well, tell your husband he's a lucky man." Finally, I got through to him, good. I relax a little, all too soon. I start walking. After a few moments of silence, he says, "Well, can I at least watch you?" Now the feeling of being creeped on is overwhelming my annoyance. No one has ever asked to watch me. I don't know what to say. He's still following me, brakes squealing lightly. At this point, I'm not sure what to do. It's still over half a mile back home, and there's nowhere to go and no one around. I don't have my phone. He continues to follow me for another block. We're at the end of the street. A shadowy corner is lined with overgrown hedges and thick tree limbs from a canopy. Suddenly, I spot a tall and burly man watching us from a porch darkened by dense foliage. He stands up and into the light. The car creep sees him, and I witness a short stare down. The man on the porch shifts his stance, and instantly the grease ball in the car speeds off. Because of the hedges in front of me, I can't see the license plates. I can hear him revving down the road. "Thank you," I say to the standing man, who nods lightly in recognition and sits back down. My dog stops growling. I continue walking and see taillights disappearing down the hill. I run home, taking every possible shortcut, being sure I'm not followed. The adrenaline wears off as I recount the tale to my housemate and my husband. It would have been very difficult to lose the guy, and I'd have had no choice to lead him back to my house. I'm grateful to the man on the porch for scaring him off. It's deeply unnerving when someone is so confident about creepily watching you. I reported the guy and never saw him again. That was the last time I went on an evening run alone, and I always carry my phone with me now. Let's never meet, greasy guy who wanted to watch me. I don't care to know what else you wanted to do. 3. This happened quite a while ago, but it still sticks out in my mind as one of the creepiest encounters I have ever had. I am a 5'4" decent-looking female, who is a bit too plucky for her own good sometimes. At the time, I was driving an old Volvo grocery getter. Nothing that provokes a second look from anyone, even cops. I had pulled into a somewhat run-down shopping center to do a bit of poking around at a discount store. 2 attractive young girls had just pulled in ahead of me in a red sports car and were getting out. I was taking my time, finishing my cigarette, with the window open, when I saw a man exit a blue car and call out to them. "Hey, excuse me, girls," he said in a friendly voice. They kept walking. He called out again, a bit louder this time, and slowly walking towards them. "Sorry to bother you, but I think I just hit your car and maybe we should exchange information." In my mind, I'm thinking, ew, what a loser. That is the lamest excuse I've ever heard. And I chuckled. I had seen them pull in at the same time I did, and they were nowhere near this guy's car. At this point, the man walked into my view and I got a quick look at him from my side mirror. He was a middle-aged man with a comb-over who just screamed, "Hi everyone, I'm a creeper!" I laughed it off once again until one of the girls stopped to speak with him. For some reason, I felt the need to intervene. I hopped out of my car and legged it toward them, passing him before he could get any closer. "Hey guys," I shouted and waved. One of the girls gave me a look as if I had just grown a head out of my armpit. I gave them a quick sideways flick of my eyes, and there was a sudden understanding, which I was grateful for, as not playing along at that moment would have made things really awkward. He approached us and stood to my right. "Oh, hey, Doris," the other girl said with a big grin. I could see his eyes darting around as if he was assessing his surroundings. The man spoke up again. "Hi there, I'm really sorry to bother you lovely girls, but I think I may have dinged your car when I pulled in." I turned to him with a huge shit-eating grin. I said, "No, you didn't. You're fine. I watched you pull in." I turned and pointed to the spot I saw him from originally, which again was nowhere near these girls. He looked put off for a moment, and a slight frown burrowed into his forehead. "Oh, okay, sorry to bother you." I smiled at him again and said, "Thank you for checking, though. Have a good one." As the three of us quickly walked into the store, there was a collective feeling of relief once the doors shut behind us, leaving him still standing there. We all nervously chatted for a bit, and I said with a smile, "Doris? Really?" They both laughed. "Hey, that's my grandma's name," and laughed a bit harder. We informed the manager of the situation. To say he was less than helpful would be an understatement. One of the girls phoned the non-emergency police line, and they informed us that they would send a patrol. I left a short time after to head to the craft store. I noticed his car still parked in the same spot with him in it. I could see him in my peripheral view watching me from his rear view mirror. I just knew in my gut that this guy was no ordinary creeper. Instead of walking the somewhat long distance across the parking lot, I decided to drive my car and park it right in front, in between two very large pickups. I got what I needed, but couldn't shake this twisting knot in my stomach. So I decided that I needed a nice new set of X-Acto blades. I informed the clerk about the man in the blue car as I was checking out, and asked her to keep an eye on me as I got in my car. She agreed and said she had had complaints about him all day, and the police still had not arrived. Before leaving, I unwrapped the X-Acto and stuck it in my pocket, blade side down. The clerk didn't bat an eyelash. Being very aware of my surroundings, I quickly walked the short distance to my car. Sure as shit, there was a blue car parked opposite to mine. What made it even worse was that he had taken the extra effort to back in. This guy had followed me and was waiting for me. Oh shit, I'm thinking. And thinking fast. I opened my car door wide enough to put a barrier between myself and whatever this guy may have been thinking. Just as I was about to get in, the blue car's door opened and out he came. For some ungodly reason, I didn't want to run. I wanted to see what he was going to do. My inner voice was telling me to stay. Maybe if you can keep him here long enough, the clerk will call the police again, with enough evidence that this guy is actually stalking women. I wedged my keys into my fists so the metal pointed out between my fingers, and kept it to my side. In hindsight, I don't know if starting the car would have been a better idea, but alas, decisions were made. He stood up and walked to the front of his car and stopped. "Don't I know you from somewhere?" My natural defenses kicked in, which is sarcasm, and I smirked. "Yeah, from the parking lot about 45 minutes ago." He didn't smile. He was deadpan. "No, I mean from somewhere else. I think we have met before." The look on his face, his whole demeanor had changed. He looked and he felt empty. No emotion at all. I suddenly felt like I wanted to vomit. I was scared. Yet that damn inner voice kept telling me, just play the game. I started taking mental notes. Blue beat-up hatchback. I don't remember the make exactly, as it was many years ago. I do remember vividly what he looked like, as I noticed that I was staring at him with this wild-eyed look on my face. He looked like the poster child for every serial killer, rapist, and kidnapper. I swear they all shop at the same store and only have one outfit. A white middle-aged man with a face like a shaved pug, dirty blue-grey jeans, work boots, a stained white t-shirt, black square-framed glasses, and a comb-over. It wasn't just a comb-over. His hair was sprayed on as if that was the only form of hygiene this man thought existed. Charming. He continued with his odd questions and attempts to get me to go to a bar with him. "Just hop in. There's one right around the corner," he said, still deadpan. No more of the fake attempted pleasantries or smiles. My alarm bells were ringing so loudly they broke, and I had to buy new ones on eBay. The word "nope" ran through my head in full stereo. He then proceeded to babble some garbage about how pretty I was and he's just a lonely guy travelling through town and would love company. You know the script. Before he could finish, I blurted out, "Oh, do you have a puppy in your car too?" He went quiet, looked back and forth between his car and myself, looking confused. No, do you?" I had to laugh. He was not amused. He took another step closer to my door, and that's when I had had enough. I swear I watched too much television, and without thinking I held up my opaque bag of goods from the craft store and said rather loudly, "You want to see my new X-Acto blades and hockey mask?" He took a slow step back, as I stood there with this insane grin on my face, turned to his car and said over his shoulder, "No, I don't think we have met. Sorry to bother you, ma'am." Smiled and got in. I jumped in my car so fast and locked the doors, grabbed a pen from the glove box, and scribbled down his plate number and car model. I watched him drive away just as a cop pulled around. Typical. However, in their defense, the cop was pleased with the number of details I provided, and then wagged his finger at me for putting myself in that situation. Can't blame him for that. After all the questions were answered, I did go to the bar and have several stiff drinks. Later that night, I turned on the television and caught the last 2 seconds of a police sketch that looked quite familiar to the man I encountered. Might be a coincidence, but then again, maybe not. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 3 True Scary Stories, episode 283. Thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. I just want to say thanks to everyone for the feedback you gave me on yesterday's video. Most people seem okay with the idea of me alternating back and forth, trying new things out, and which is good because the retail and the fast food retail stories, the hotel stories, in terms of views, they're fairly close to what the scary stories do. So it's certainly worth doing more of those. I think there are still some people out there who, which is fair enough if they're just not interested, but they haven't checked them out. Although I do occasionally get people saying, "I didn't think I'd like these, but I was bored, so I clicked on one and now I've watched the whole playlist." So I have hopes that everything will continue to grow, that I can lure you in with one type of video and then slip you something unexpected. Oh wait, no, that sounds wrong. Okay, it's actually kind of late and I'm tired, so I'm going to head off now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.